welcome to public comment. Members of the audience have an opportunity to speak to any item on the agenda or regarding subject concerns that do not appear on the agenda. The chair reserves the right to limit speaking time to 3 minutes. Government Code Section 54954.2 and Education Code Section 35145.5 prohibit the Board of Education from discussing or acting upon matters not on the agenda. Therefore, board members may 1, acknowledge receipt of the information, or 2, refer the matter to staff with no direction as to action or priority. I do have one card from somebody. If you do want to address it, you didn't fill out a card, please get one of the blue cards. But first we have Mike Clonix.
President Schwandt and board. This not?
No.
Now you guys President Schwandt and board, my name is Mike Clonix, and I'm here today as the AEA bargaining chairperson. In a short while, Lee and I will be presenting you a review of the district's budget and their alleged crisis. Last year, the AEA bargaining team in the district sat down and looked at the entire contract. We tentatively agreed on over 30 changes to our contract with the district. Negotiations took a turn for the worse toward the end of last year when the district presented us with 3 proposals that would result in over $3 million in additional cuts to our bargaining unit. I shared these proposals with our site reps at our last rep council, the meeting of 2018-19. I let them know that there was no way we were going to agree to those cuts. I told our site reps our plan on overcoming this hurdle. First, we're going to put it in the district's hands. Give them some time and allow them to do the right thing and rescind those 3 proposals. If that did not work, then the AEA bargaining team will step up and try and make things right. Step 3 was to organize our members and protest over unjustified cuts. Summer came and went. The district did not reach out to us to rescind their proposals. At our first rep council meeting of the year, I reminded our site reps of our plan. We scheduled bargaining meetings with the district in which I openly explained our plan to them as well. They continued to stand firm on the $3 million cuts. It became apparent we needed to move to step 2. The AEA bargaining team needed to step up and try and solve the problem. We presented the district with counter proposals to all 3 of their cuts, but unfortunately the district has yet to respond to our proposals. This brings us to today. I am not here to negotiate or protest. I am here simply to help disprove the alleged budget crisis and show the district there is absolutely no reason for additional cuts. Our plea today is to the board. I want you to hear us out and act on what you feel is the right thing. But please, act on this quickly. Something unprecedented has happened over the past few months. The alleged budget crisis has brought both bargaining teams together. Lee and Sosa just recently brought both executive boards together for a joint meeting. It's never happened before. It has become clear to both parties, although some cuts were warranted for declining enrollment, there have been many other cuts made and proposed based on misinformation given at budget presentations. Members of our management team have begun to realize that their recent pass on a raise was also unwarranted, even though Dr. Mussolini received his raise as well as a bonus. Last year, at separate times, you saw this boardroom, the hallway, the parking lot, fill up with the respective protests from each of the bargaining units. Imagine what that's going to look like when we combine our forces. I hope it does not need to come to that. The district has only fueled the fire between us with this alleged budget crisis. After tonight, it's in the hands of you to do the right thing. Thank you.
Next up, we have an opportunity to hear from Alvord Education Association on a budget review presentation. Typically, as a board, we get presentations prior to the meeting and have a chance to review them to kind of get a sense of where we're going and what's happening. We haven't had a chance to do that tonight, so this will be the first time we're seeing what's going to be presented as well. So I appreciate you coming up, sharing tonight, and please take.
I apologize, we didn't have that ready ahead of time. We actually just finalized it about 45 minutes ago. So we'll have copies for you that'll match exactly what the presentation is, if that's okay. And I do want to thank you for inviting us. This is also unprecedented. And we are not here for anything else except to produce or to show our point of view and what we've been accused of screaming and yelling about for a year. We think it'll speak for itself. Thank you.
There was one note that I didn't bring up. Are you scheduled for about 20 minutes? Is that your timeline that you expect?
We had planned about 30. We'll get as close to 20 as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Talk fast.
Okay. Well, there's the agenda that we're going to talk about with some disclaimers. We're also going to talk about one-time money versus ongoing money, some examples of one-time money, some examples of ongoing money, and the power of ongoing money. And your favorite, Mr. Schwant, we're going to give you some multi-year projections and hopefully present you with some solutions to solve this budget crisis that we're in. Disclaimer, the figures that I'm going to present to you, I did not make up. There's no numbers that I say, hey, it's supposed to be this. You put this down, it's supposed to be this. They're all numbers from that has been presented at board meetings from the district. Some of it though came from incomplete works, like the third interim from last year was not a budget, was just a couple PowerPoint slides. We haven't got a complete CERP or a position control from the district that we feel is updated. But we'll use what we've got. Again, all the data, except for one portion of this presentation, is everything from the district. When we get to the point where I say, hey, this is my number, I'm gonna let you know when it is and why I came across it, all right? And I wanna be full transparent on that, so here we go. So here's an example of why we feel the district is providing you with faulty information. It comes back a year ago, December 2018. The district and ADA settled on an agreement, on a raise. The district at that time presented what's called an AB 1200 to RCOE, saying, hey, there's a change in our budget. We settled on an agreement. We have to give you this information. Well, prior to that, the district had a budget with an ending balance for last year at $10.9 million. That was in your presentation. Then you did the AB 1200 and said, because of the raise, our ending balance last year is going to be $3.5 million. That's a loss of $7.4 million, right? Or 6.4 million. Two things to note here. First, that 3.5 million only represents the raise for certificated. Classified did not settle for the raise yet when the AB 1200 was put in. That's a big point because it's going to be even less when the classified got their raise. But let's just work with the 3.5 million that you say that was going to be there. All right, well, February 2019 comes around, a couple months later. Lee and myself, along with Dr. Musarino, President Schwant, the then CBO, Susanna Lopez, and a couple members of RCOE, who's actually present in the room right now, met. At that meeting, we presented some questions for you that we just flat out said, your numbers are off. They're not right. They're wrong. And in return, all of you said, no, you're wrong. Our numbers are correct. Your raise is causing this. Well, let's go forward to September, just a couple months ago, September 2019. The district provides an adopted budget. 2 weeks later, one of the RCO members, Vince Christakis, brings forward the revised budget with the beginning balance for this year, beginning balance. Now, before I say that, I want to note, I think you've seen enough multi-year projections to understand that the ending balance on 1 year is the beginning balance of the next year. So that big argument we had about $3.5 million should have been the beginning balance of this year's budget. But you say, no, that's $12.6 million. Difference of $9.1 million. We sat and we argued with you continually last year that your numbers are off. Now the books are closed on this. That was last year. We were right. Everyone else in that room was wrong. And the same thing is happening this year. Now, besides the fact that a high school counselor, I'm calling you a high school counselor, I don't want to call you this,
I'll take it.
and a PE middle school teacher is sitting and telling you that your numbers are wrong, and we end up being right. Let's take that off the table for a second. And I want to ask each and every one of you board members, how many decisions did you make last year based on the fact that you thought you were going to end with $3.5 million? How many decisions did you eliminate because you thought you were only going to have $3.5 million at the beginning of the year? Think back. I know there's a couple times. Again, you're right. Let's move on. Disclaimer number 2. Now let's move toward the future. Yeah, that was the past. Let's see what's happening this year. Same exact thing is happening. I want you to know that you're going to see some big differences in some numbers that you haven't seen yet. We're going to present the numbers the way that we see them. Last year we was in a private meeting. Last year, nobody knew what was going on. This year, we're going to a public hearing. We want everybody to hear. And we're doing it a little earlier. We're going to be a little more proactive. So we want everybody to know what's going on. Let's talk about one-time money versus ongoing money. And I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence, but I just want to make sure that we know the difference between the two. One-time money is money placed in or taken out of the budget. It doesn't repeat itself time after time. It's a one-time shot. Example of that would be removing money from the general unrestricted fund and placing it into the restricted fund, or vice versa. Either way works. One-time money. You're not going to get it next year, it's just right here. Or the SERP. Now the SERP is a kind of tricky one. Some people might say it's ongoing money, some people might say it's one-time money. The SERP is a savings over 5 years. You're going to save for 5 years. Now 5 years is not ongoing, but it's more than 1 year. And what happens is you have someone that's at a high salary, and you say, hey, retire, and they go, okay, and we're going to give you some extra money. But we're going to hire someone at a lower pay scale. And over the 5 years, that's when the savings stops. So you do have the savings for 5 years. Unless you eliminate that position that person retired from, and you don't hire it back. Like, what was that? You want to talk about that?
Which one?
The instructional coaches?
Oh, the 17 coaches that were rolled into retiree positions, those 17 coaches were never replaced, so that's a total overall savings. Plus, the savings of not hiring someone back for the SERP.
So until you hire 17 more instructional coaches in this building, that's an ongoing savings every year. And later on in this presentation, you're going to see the power of ongoing money. All right, so ongoing money is money that continues to be added or removed from the budget every year. It doubles itself every year, triples itself in 3 years. That's what makes those multi-year projections really bad, Mr. Schwan. Reduction or addition to salary benefits, reduction or addition to consistent sources of revenues like LCFF, federal, state, and local revenues. So one-time money. Here's an example of one-time money. This was presented at a board meeting. $10 million more in the restricted reserve accounts that you didn't anticipate. 10 million. Now you're crying budget crisis, and yet somewhere where we couldn't tell when until after June into July, do we not see that 10 million appear? Didn't happen until we came back from school. $10 million more than what we needed. Now that's not only just $10 million. That's $10 million added to the $29 million that's already in those reserve accounts. That's $39 million in reserve accounts while we're saying budget crisis, budget crisis, budget crisis.
The very significant thing about that restricted money, and you've heard me say this over and over again, is that much of that started as unrestricted money. Susana Lopez was on record 2, 3, 4 times as saying, money that was once unrestricted can be moved back. Up here you'll see highlighted 2 sections from the FICMAT report. Dr. Musarino likes to put out bits from the FICMAT report, but he hasn't really emphasized these. And that is that it says, year after year after year, the district puts too much unrestricted money into restricted. And it says to stop doing that. There's a chart that was in the actual FICMAT report that we couldn't get to copy over, but they give a 4-year average, and they say on average we're putting $6.6 million too much into restricted. Now remember that 10.1 million more than what you thought you were going to have at the end of the year. And I've said to this board many, many times, move money that was once unrestricted out of restricted back into unrestricted, and your budget crisis is over. Well, here's your FICMAT report that people like to refer to so much, and it tells you to do the same thing. And the second highlighted area down at the bottom is about too much money going into routine maintenance. So keep that in mind when we talk about the possible solutions.
So going back a slide there, do you remember that $10 million that just, I don't know, it just came up extra? Well, you gotta add that to this story. Now, it's not 12.6 million, it's 22.6 million. It's $19.1 million more than you anticipated.
That you made decisions based on.
Now, if you, let's just, it's been a bug in my, it's all right. Administration, when we negotiate and we take in consideration all 3 groups. We take in consideration administration. When administration gets passed over, they probably got passed over because you were told that there's only going to be $3.5 million. Now, would you have passed them over if you knew there was $22.6 million?
So also in the FICMAT report, they refer to, and this was before the books were closed, I believe this was produced in March or early April. They say that all of the eliminated positions that you voted on had been incorporated into the budget. So there were the 54.8, 55 rounding up, 25.5 for classified. And they say after all, the district acknowledged all of those were put in the budget and they still needed to cut X millions of dollars. Well, we're going to show you those have not been incorporated into the budget, and yet you voted on those eliminated positions with the understanding those savings would be put in the budget, and that's what FICMAT was told as well.
All right, so before we do that, we're going to talk about the SERP. Just a couple things about the SERP. This was presented at a board meeting from the district. Didn't change anything on it. It says that the SERP is going to save the district over 5 years, $10 million. And it says that that's based on 83 certificated, 6 certificated management, what's that, 97 classified, and 8 classified management. Now that paper was dated July 30th. But what's funny on this is that you only say, well, that's only if 8 are not replaced under certificated, and if only 15 are not replaced under classified. That didn't happen. We're going to come back to this slide in a little bit, and I'm going to ask you a question on that. Here's some information taken from board meetings. Again, we're just presenting, this is why we think things are wrong. Okay? You presented this at a board meeting, and the 4th line down, it talks about the cuts to certificated, and it says there's 17 FTEs, and it's equaling 2.6 million in the second year. Do you see what that is on that screen? And the one below that is the 13.5 to classified. Now this was presented to you at a board meeting during the second interim. Prior to this presentation, before, you had two resolutions. You had one resolution that said it's going to eliminate 55 certificated employees, and you approved it. You had another one where you were going to eliminate 66 and a half classified. Before this presentation comes to the board and says, no, yes, we're eliminating them, but we're only going to count 17 and 13 and a half. This is where the numbers don't make sense. We talked to you about this. Let's look at that one. Before I talk about this, I want you to look at that first column, and this is like a couple $100,000 in the first three, and that's totaling $5 million. Let's save that for another time. I don't know whose math that is, but that doesn't equal $5 million. I'm going to concentrate on that 3.7 and the 17 certificated and the 13 and a half classified. This is what I like. This is math. This is what I would present in my middle school math class. Okay? If there were 17 certificated positions that equal $2.6 million, how much does one position equal? Well, you do the math, you divide 17 into 2.6, and you get $156,000. Now, you didn't do 17, you did 55. So we multiply that 155, or that 156 by 55, now you get 8.6. That's what should be in that column, 8.6. Same thing with classified. Okay? At one position equaling 77, times that by 66.5, that's 5.1 million. Let's add those two up. 8.6 plus 5.1, I guess it'd be 13.7. Instead of the 3.7 that was presented after all these cuts were approved by you and not put into the budget. Time for some more math. See the 13.7 and 3.7? Subtract that, what do you get? $10 million.
Ta-da.
Moving on.
Sorry.
It's all right. Remember the CERP? $10 million in the CERP. Savings over 5 years. With 8 certificated and 13 classified. What if it was 55 and 66.5? Do you think that 10 million is going to be more? Please don't let anybody tell you that the CERP is losing money. And if you believe that, I have some swamp land to sell you. All right, here we go.
So one of the things in going back over all of this, of course, our COE has played a large part in this with their infamous letters. And so we've gone back, and I think, we've had comments made and done some back and forth and for a year now. And one of the things that they've made very clear is they only go on the assumptions. That's a quote from the very first letter that was sent. We base our decisions on the assumptions the district makes. So they, on April 15th, they make these assumptions that all of these cuts and everything that we've been showing you have been put into the budget. One of the gentlemen back here, we went back and forth at one meeting when I kept getting up and saying they have not been incorporated into the budget. So here, April 15th, I believe this was when they demanded a third interim report and all of these more cuts and everything, they made the assumptions that those cuts were put into the budget, and as we've shown you, they have not been. They do not, and it was admitted to us in that February 19 meeting, they do not go through the budget line by line, page by page, and analyze it the way we do. Every one of their letters says they base their decisions on the assumptions the district gives them.
Steve Cooper. Ongoing money. There's the big one. Okay, buckle up. Here we go. Ongoing money. Cost of salary and benefits. Previous 4 years, cost of salary and benefits. I'm talking classified, certificated management. I'm talking restricted, unrestricted, all combined together. Salaries and benefits. According to your unaudited actuals. 163 million in 15-16, 171, The next year, 176 the next year, and 183 the year after that, which was the 18-19 school year. 2019 comes along, and you give an adopted budget. And you say, 177 million is what the cost is. Sounds right. 177 million. Last year was 183. We had to serve. We eliminated positions. That makes sense. 177 million makes sense. But 2 weeks go by, and you do a revised budget. And in the revised budget, you say, oh, it's 198. 2 weeks, 198 million. And we have a third source of what this costs, and that's called the position control sheet. That's provided by the district. And we were told that that's what the budget is based on. Because position control sheet is just a sheet that has everybody's name, where they work, how much they make, what's their cost and benefits, and a total. And that shows 180 million. I can go with 180 million too if you want to. If your numbers, I'm not making any numbers up yet. Okay? The current position control sheet shows many staff position reductions in FTEs, but still has 18 certificated and 35 classified positions. Now, fictitious employee changed his name to vacant position, but they're still there and they still have a cost associated with it, a high cost associated with them. So that 180 million could be less, but let's keep it. That's all we have so far. I can't produce anything for you, just what you give us.
But please remember what Mike said. 177 million, 2 weeks later became 198 million.
Okay, we're still going to talk about the cost of salary and benefits. Okay, but now we're going to look into the future. The revised budget, that was the one that came 2 weeks after the adopted budget. The revised budget said this year, $198 million for the cost of salary and benefits. And in the multi-year projections that they gave you, they said, in next year it's going to be 202, 203, 205. I'm not doubting those numbers. That's whatever that's your numbers. Step and column, whatever it is, but they go up every year. Here's where I put in some money, some figures. Okay? The next 4 years, according to the adopted budget, that's the 177. Those red numbers are my numbers. That has not been presented to you from anybody. This is the first time you're seeing these numbers. I want to be clear. But how I got that 181, 182, 184, I just looked at the revised budget, and from 198 to 202, that was an addition of $4 million. So I just used the same addition of $4 million from 177 to 181. From 202 to 203 was 1 million, so I went from 181 to 182. And from 203 to 205, 2 million, I went to 184. Okay? Again, those numbers have never been presented to you until right now, but the method has been. And then you're also according to the position control. Again, those red numbers, my numbers. Okay, +4, +1, +2. All right? One other thing about ongoing money is revenue. Revenue is ongoing. You get money from the state revenues and other local revenues. On state revenue, if you look at the previous 4 years, according to your unaudited actuals, your numbers, you get an average of $23.2 million every year from other state revenues. But when you project it into your multi-year projections, you're only using 19 million. Let's look at local revenues. Previous 4 years, according to your own unaudited actuals, you get an average of $6.2 million every year from other state revenues. But when you do your multi-year projections, you're only counting for 3.2 million. Again, budget crisis. You're complaining at budget crisis. I can understand that you underestimate revenues. I understand that. That's a conservative look at things. But by that much, when you're in a budget crisis, and not to mention you do have a 3% reserve for economic uncertainties. That's what it's there for. in case you don't get all that money, you have that 3%. The 21.1 and the 4.7, all that is just the difference between what you use and what you normally get. Okay? 21.1 is in the middle between 19 million and 23.2, and 4.7 is between 3.2 and 6.2. I pointed that to you because I'm going to use that in a little bit. All right?
Speaking of a little bit, it's about 28 minutes already.
This is fascinating though, right?
I do like numbers.
All right, look.
But we have to
We'll
wrap
zip
it
through
up.
the rest.
We'll go as fast as you want me to on this one. Multi-year projections. This was presented by you, by the district. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. It says you use the 198. There it is. Budget prices. Next 2 years, not this year, not next year, but year 2 or year 3 and year 4, you don't meet the $7 million needed for economic uncertainty. Budget crisis. RCOE is in the house. They've been here for a year. They're still here. They're the guests that never leave. It's based on all your figures. Let's look at this one. Let's look at a multi-year projection based on the adopted budget. The adopted budget. That was the one that happened before the revised budget. Okay? And I'm not going to use any adjustments to the revenue. Ready? Adopted budget 177. 3 years out, you're at $87 million. That's the power of ongoing money. Instead of 198, I used 177. That's a difference of $21 million. But it's a difference of $21 million the next year, which is 42. The next year, 63. The next year, 80, whatever, and there's your $87 million. Okay, and you're going, Mike, you're crazy. It's not going to ever happen. Let's look at a couple other ones. You can call me crazy some more. Okay, now this is with the adjustment to the revenue. Remember the revenue, adjustment revenue, when I said, hey, let's cut the difference? Instead of saying 19 million and 3.2, use 21 million and 4.7. Watch what happens. $91 million. 91. Crazy, right? This is the one that I want to end on, Mr. Schwant. Okay, and this is the one that I want you really to focus on. Okay? This is based on a current position control sheet. I'm not going to put any adjustments to the revenue. Let's keep your revenue conservative like it's been. All right? But only base it on the position control sheets that you give us. Using only your figures. Just your figures. Okay? Position control sheet at 180 million. Remember this story? You went from 3.5 to 22.6, a difference of $19.1 million. If I presented to you this exact thing last year, you would have said I'm crazy. It's a difference of $19 million, Mike. That's not going to happen. There it is right there. $28 million for this year, all the way 3 years out to $75 million. That's using your position control sheet. And just to make sure that it's not that crazy or not that far off, you said in your revised budget that you're going to end the year, what's that number? $10.7 million. That's only $18 million off. The same thing you did last year. You were $19 million wrong last year. And we're telling you you're $18 million at least wrong this year. Because this doesn't include the CERP, and it doesn't include the underestimated revenues. Possible solutions. This is probably the most important part. Possible solutions. RCOE, been here a year. Their best answer for us. 7 minus 3, 4 years out equals 4. Make $4 million more in cuts. That's what they had given us a year here. $4 million more in cuts to kids, to teachers, to administration, to classified. Let's make $4 million more in cuts. It doesn't have to happen. Here's some other solutions. Here's the CERP. You said 10 million. We think it's more because I showed you what we think. I can't prove it because Hello, Keenan, can you give us an updated one? I can't do that, you can, okay? But let's just use half of that, that's $5 million. That solves the budget crisis. That's one-time money, $5 million, right? Let's go back one to this, the $4 million in cuts. It's not $4 million in cuts. We just showed you what ongoing money does. It's $1 million in ongoing money. $1 million difference. In the first year, we'll turn to $2 million, we'll turn to $3 million, we'll turn to $4 million. $1 million. How about if you adjust the state revenue? Instead of $23.2 million that you get every year, right? Like you say $19 million, change it to $20 million. Budget crisis solved. Budget crisis solved. The other local revenue that you get $6.2 million every year from, but you say $3.2 million we're going to use. Change it to $4.2 million in your books. Budget crisis solved. RCOE is out. 4, align salary and benefits and budget to current position control. You saw what that was. That was that last projection I showed you. Use your figures in your multi-budget control, in your multi-budget projections. Budget crisis way solved. Move excess money from out of that $39 million in the fund balances, put it back into the unrestricted. Move less unrestricted money into the restricted, just like FICMAC told you to do. Yeah, Lee, I don't know.
What we want the board to know more than anything is you have the power and control to solve this whole budget crisis. We are not suggesting one solution. There's a rumor out there that we're asking for a raise already, and this is about getting a raise. Couldn't be further from the truth. Hopefully Mr. Presby has confirmed for you, we haven't brought up salary, benefits, anything. What we're trying to do is stop the bleeding. There is not a need for $4 million in cuts for our kids and our employees to suffer more. You can choose any one of those. Prove us wrong on 5 of the 6. I'm sure the county right now is scrambling to go through things with I believe the quote was, fine-tooth comb to prove us wrong. They will not prove all 6 of these solutions wrong. You have the power to make a decision, direct one of these to happen and to solve this crisis and stop the bleeding. Our kids are suffering, our schools are suffering, everything is suffering. Enough is enough. And this is what we've been trying to say for a year. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing the information. We'll take the information back, definitely look at it.
And I left your copies there.
Talk to staff about it as well. We will adjourn now into closed session.